Hello, this is the ATM Train Fan, and I'm here for an all-new Rare Tyco Train videos that you need to find Part 3 video, which it was supposed to release a couple of days ago, but ended up lacking is because of time consumption and also busyness with other things. But now I'm presenting that Part 3 is officially here. So Part 3 will cover half and half of all the newer Tyco Trains that I have, which will be a little different than my part 1 and part 2 videos, which I released 2 years ago, but sadly I wasn't able to upload due to trailing fanning and also with rail fanning as well, and it's not easy posting videos, so I'm currently here posting part 3 of Rare Tyco Trains that you need to find, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and no further ado, we'll continue with part 3, an all-new series. Here at the Game Pacific Barbara, this is my starter for Barbara Caboose. Even this is my profile picture, but let's start with the trains. Firstly is a 1953-54 trolley, and this specific trolley right here is probably one of the earlier releases, but not only with the exposed gear, but also in earlier times they used to have a non-painted shell in which multiple versions came in, like a yellow version, along with another version too, which this one is slightly newer. This is a 1955 and 56 X trolley in a different scheme, but this one actually painted is because in newer trolleys they would end up coming across with stocker designs with the yellow and also with painted designs with the red. But in 1958, that would end up changing in the 1958 Tyco catalog. In 1958, the doors and some other areas were painted yellow, which in these two models, the decals or paint would usually be added on like separately. But with these models they're kept plain. But with the 1958 model, it ended up having the designs like painted on, which these older trolleys, even though they're valuable, but these were classics for Tycos back in the late 1950s. And with the trolleys, we're moving on to our next train, which is a Tyco Plymouth switcher, but not just any Plymouth switcher. It's a U.S. steel Plymouth switcher with the gray bottom. Gray bottoms are one of the harder ones to find, is because the Plymouth switcher came out first with the gray bottoms, but these didn't appear in sets. This specific one appeared as a separate Tyco Plymouth switcher, which it's not only a really gorgeous unit and also runs, but with these these are smaller, running, and also reliable units. And next off of our list are some of the bigger units, which I'm also going to be featuring, which I'm putting a few things trolleys away, is because my space right now isn't the biggest, but I'm currently moving around the trains that I'm currently presenting in this video. Next off, we have a Union Pacific SD24, and this specific train is not only a power torque model, but at the same time, it's like a one-of-a-kind unit with not only with the Union Pacific scheme, but at the same time, a Tyco model that was experimental and also built by Tyco, which involved making the design of the SD24s. But with different models like this, Union Pacific, and along with other models, came about, even though I'll be talking mostly about the ones that I have, since I don't have most of the models. Like with this specific model being the Union Pacific. But the reason why this is featured on this list is because SD24s and Tyco are usually hard to come by, especially with certain models like the Real Grand, and along with a few other models. But I have only a few of these, and I'm presenting this one right here. And next off, I have a few Penn Central models, but these two Penn Central models have a difference between them. Sorry. And between these two models, there's one difference, and they're going to both be coming on the same track. Here they come. So you see this model here, But look out for this model. So what the difference is between this model and the unit in the back is that the number boards are in two different colors. This one is in the white number board, which has the same symbols, but the number plate is white. But when you go to this one is red. This one is red, and here's a close-up of it. So I don't know the exact year where they painted this from white to red, but all from noticing is that certain models with different kind of numberings are usually scarce is because of probably not only with experimental reasons, but also with the times of also when the trains have their changes, like with the Penn Central Alco 430s, which is actually the full name. And next off, we have a few steam engines, in which these steam engines will have a few differences from one another. And the first one I'm going to be showing is a newer version and an older version of the unit. And what I'm talking about specifically is the late 1950s Tyco Little Trains unit. And with these little units, they were not only very popular, but at the same time, they had the older style loop couplers, which up close, these loop couplers are very different from the horn hook and the knuckle couplers, which these couplers are not compatible to certain kinds of couplers. But with these they have their one-of-a-kind coupler, which these were actually released by Mantua. But eventually, the Tyco logo on this tender, this specific logo, wasn't actually the same, because a few years before, in the mid 1950s, the logo used to look like this. Sorry, the train's going the wrong way. In the mid 1950s, the Tyco Yoko used to look like this, which is a little different than the one over here. But this specific model is not only the older design, but it's also the rarer design, is because when the logoing were starting to shrink, it ended up shrinking down from a Tyco with the number to only Tyco with the two periods on T and Y. In fact, the T, and the reason why I noticed why there's two dots between the T and the Y is because T and Y means Taylor Company, and the company has a period right here showing it's Taylor Company. It's Taylor Company, but with this being the name. And as for the Taylor Company here, it's not much more bigger, but also it's the older design. Even though mine has a broken headlight, and this model, when it was first bought a while back, it had failures running, so it took a little while to get this one running. And next we have a few little steam engines, and these little steam engines are completely different than what you've seen with the little Tyco shunters. And with these Tyco shunters, they have not just shunters, but they're given a specific name. They're known as the Tyco boosters, and this specific booster right here was released back in the late 1950s, and these appeared in smaller sets. But with this one here, it's not only like hard to find, but at the same time, boosters were one of the earlier trains that were released by Tyco. But they were not always released in the Pennsylvania. They were not only released in the Pennsylvania, but in that time too, they were also released in the Union Pacific, which here's a Union Pacific version right here, which also appeared in a few sets. But with these, they were not only very good units, but at the same time, they also had many different variants. Like, here's two variants here, but both of these variants are almost a little bit the same, but with different road names. And if you're wondering, what does the underneath of the shifter looks like? It's a little bit the same, but it compacts a few differences, and not only with the gear, but also it has a hollow tender, which newer shifters in the 60s had this filled in with a few screws in the plastic cover. but the older versions have the hollow tenders, and it goes a little similar with the older one too, with the older logo, which under here has a hollow tender and the different gears. And next off, we have an F7, but it's completely different than the other F7s, which most are usually familiar with. This specific F7 is the latest design of how the F7s used to look like. And with this design right here, it's not only new, but also it's the latest version of it, is because underneath it not only has the newer motor to it, but eventually this is the model that eventually went into Power Tour, or as soon as those newer motors came in. But with this one appeared mostly in series catalogs, like Christmas catalogs and other types of catalogs featured in stores. But this one, I'm not too sure if it made a present in the real deal catalogs released by Tyco. But all I know is this model is not only like the newest version, but it's also hard to find, especially with the older styles of motor. And next off, we have a few other Alco 430s, but these four Alco 430s have a different story in between them than the Penn Centrals. So firstly, we have a late 1960s. So the train's going the wrong way at certain times, but the first unit is a Burlington Alco 430, and this specific Alco was actually one of the first units to appear on the catalog, which the specific year is probably the 1965 and 66. But what makes these a little different is, you see the rivets? And if you're wondering what the rivets look like on the other units, which were released a couple years prior, like for example the Penn Central, this specific one has two different rivets, because in the earlier times they usually have this specific type of rivet which used to drill out and put a screw in order to make the motor accessible. But sadly, these rivets are only one of a kind, since if they're in there and they're sealed, that means the motor is completely in there. And when people usually drill these out, they will not be original to the train. But with the older models, they would usually have a little bit more detail than what's present on the newer ones. But sadly, I don't have most of the newer ones present for the Burlington. And also with this another upcoming model, which is another of those same year releases, it's also for the New Haven as well. But this specific one has a little bit of a difference. With the older styles, like the one with all the rivets on it, they're exactly the same. But this one right here, actually being a kit built a while back, it has New Haven with the number. But with newer ones, they don't have the New Haven on it. The number is only featured on the newer unit. But with the older ones, they have the New Haven and the number. But for the Burlingtons, they only had the same number, which is 4301. But with the newer ones, they would have a few differences, which I don't know much on the units still. But with these units being not only like rare, but at the same time, these models are the first examples of the Alco 430s. And next off, we have another Power Torque model. And what this Power Torque model has, it's a little different than what the F7As have. But this is not an F7A. It's completely different. So this non-F7A is known as a 12-wheel E8 loco. These locos are not only notable for their length, but also of their compatibility with Tyco. So with this specific model, known as the San Francisco or Union Pacific, it not only has the Power Torque motor, but also its releases. Tyco came out with a City of San Francisco, Burlington, New Haven, and a Silver Chrome Milwaukee Road. I only have the San Francisco model, and I decided to present it to show you that it's a little different than the F7As. And Tyco ended up releasing these to not only show they can make other models, but at the same time show that they have all their different models as well too, which have their own schemes. But when it's a little different with the F7, like with this next one that's coming in, here's an F7A from the 1960s, and this one has the older style motor, but these are a little smaller than the are a little smaller than the E8s, but these models right here, they're not only with the same scheme, but at the same time, this is what this is the generation Tyco that was been taken, that was been up aheaded with these, and this was the older version, while sadly the newer version ends up taking its place. But with these models, Union Pacific's in like these, in this form, like in good shape, and also ones that can able to still run perfectly are like highly valuable. At the same time, these are very good collectibles, especially with famous railroads like the Union Pacific. And next we have a few different ABA sets, but most of these sets will have a few differences. Sorry, derailment. Sorry, one unit's going faster than the other, so going light one at a time. One backs out of the stage, while the other goes inside the scheme like this. So here's the Union Pacific, but next we have a few of the sets. So next we have a few A, B sets, but this one I'm going to show you is an AB. But with these sets, they're not only hard to find, but at the same time, I'm getting them in good condition. It's also, hopefully you don't have a unit malfunctioning on this video. But here comes one with the ABA set. It's the Rio Grande scheme look with a schemed F7As from Tyco. These specific ones right here were released in the 1960s, and what makes these models is only high in priority for value is because not only with their scheme, but also, remove the B unit, it's also they're the Silver Bomb. The Silver Bombs were released first, but before the release in 1959, these covers weren't here. These were exposed gears, which in the future Rare Tyco Train videos, I will feature a video which will have the gear exposed, but this model has the gears closed because of hair and other debris. If you're going to be running these trains on the carpet, which I would definitely not recommend, is because these trains are meant to run on the table and played on high grounds. But for this pair, it has the B unit. B units are usually hard to find, is because because collectors like to pair them up with other trains, is because these specific packs aren't necessarily desirable, but at the same time they're really famous. And this specific B unit right here, it not only belongs with the Rio Grande, but also it makes a really cool set out of it. But a pair like this came in a few certain times between the early 60s and also in many other Tyco catalogs in that time frame. And now we're gonna have two different variants coming in. And these two variants will have a couple differences. And it's not by looks, it's also by power. And then by power is these two units will have two different kind of powers in them, and they will also have something completely shocking, which in this example right here is a hard to find Tuscan. It's a hard to find Tuscan dual power Pennsylvania F7A. And if you're wondering why dual power, is because under here there's two motors underneath the unit. And if you're wondering why they were putting two motors on one unit, is because they were experimenting to see if if there's two motors under here, they can pull more cars, but the only issue is these motors don't always work the same. One motor would usually go faster than the other, so some models were successful out of the factory, while some aren't, which this example here of 2 units in my whole double power collection of F7A is a run, and this is one of them. Even though it's not the best of runners, and also not always the one that's gonna be running the most, is because this is actually the only F7A and also another A unit, which I have right now in my collection. But this specific model is less common, is because of the color, which closely associates to the Pennsylvania colors. It's a beautiful set, but this version is hard to find, and wondering what was the other scheme version of it. And if you're wondering what it is it also has a unit pair with it as well. So you have the Tuscan version of it, which is more like the Pennsylvania, and you have, it's like a watermelon green, a dark green Pennsylvania. And what these units share have like a little story. With the Tyco releasing 2 different models, this model right here is mostly associated to freight hauling, while this one is more associated to passenger train sets, which this Pennsylvania also has its own passenger cars, while this one is mostly like a freight unit. But the rare version, this one is mostly uncommon, while this one is very common because this train appeared in multiple sets following the early and late 1960s on Tyco. But with this one, it's not only desirable, both Pennsylvanias, but at the same time, they're very collectibles, and these are the runners that can last. And if you're wondering, is this one a double power? No, it's a single, but this one has the gray bottom on it. And a little more presentation. And this time, instead of showing the trains with my hands like this, I have a little test track set up so I can run these units. And I'll show you the double power unit in action as well too, so 2 motors, sometimes these would run, sometimes these won't. But this one does run. And I'm sorry to say, whoever has a double power unit out there, sometimes you would be in luck, or not. Sometimes you would be in luck, and sometimes it won't always be the case, since these units are sometimes usually hard to replace, and these units date back to the 1960s. And finding a double power unit like this is heavily desirable, but at the same time, they can be more like freight haulers. But this one is a passenger hauler. And wrapping up for this video, I have one more engine, and then we're moving on to a short freight car list, which I have. So this is not only like a Tyco train, but it wasn't actually featured in a Tyco catalog. This train is actually made from me all the way back in Christmas of 2025. And if you're wondering what the unit in 2025 is, here it comes. It's the Tyco Polar Express 1225. And I'm kidding. This is a custom model, but most of the parts here are from Tyco. But the things that were customly made were the 10 that are saying Polar Express 20, which 20 is the 20th anniversary of Polar Express, which is a really good movie. I would highly recommend watching it. And what I did is I not only customized the top, which had a gold line on it. I also took a mammoth with the rails body, aka a Mikado, and took a 4-wheel trailing truck. I can put it as like a Berkshire to match like the reel Polar Express. And also I added a bow in front, which is not like the movie, but I added it there for decorations to make it present like Christmas. It's not only a really good running model, but also, it's also accustomed to celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Polar Express. And capping off with the trains, I have a few freight cars to show you, and these freight cars have a certain value to them. So first off, I'm using one of my units to pull the freight car along is a tunnel clearance car, and this one specifically by Tyco W9 has a removable tunnel clearance piece, which this piece on most of these tunnel clearance cars are usually missing. It's because they attach differently with 3 different joints and 3 different notches here which connects to the part right over here. But this specific Pennsylvania one was not the only one released. There was also a Reading one that was also released, but this one in Pennsylvania not only had the Tuscan passenger car along with the half freight car, but this car is more associated to the 1860 series of Tyco. But these ones, the older ones with the gray bottom, these are heavily desirable, and these were dated back to the late 1950s. And next off, we have a more modern car from Tyco. So next we have a Monon Rattler cement car. And this specific car is not only hard to find on its own, but the part that's usually missing on it, which I have to be careful, is this top piece. This top piece is very different than the sugar car pieces, because the sugar car tops are a little taller than the cement cars. And the reason why the cement car has this cover to make it more associated to a cement car, which these covers, even though they don't open, you just imagine that cement would be in this car. And why is it a Rattler? Well, with most Rattlers that were released in the 60s, these were used for the coal shed, which when the train passes over, it spreads these out and dumps out the coal. But this one is more associated with cement, even though it would only use this car for the coal sets. This specific one, it not only belong with the shakers, but it's completely different because not only with the top, but also of its one-of-a-kind scheme, which is the Monon. And the Monon series was not only released in a cement car, it was also released on a gondola, which I sadly don't have right now. And the last 2 cars that I have for this video is actually a rare and a common version of the car, and it's the one of a kind, not just one of a kind, but also a scarce the parading car, which are usually common in blue with the tops. These were very common in the 1970s, but in one specific year, in the 1973-74 catalog, they were released in a Tuscan top. And why was it released in the Tuscan top? Is because there were different versions released. Is probably due to an error indicating a desire for the blue top. But with the release, I don't entirely sure if this was not only an error, but at the same time, is it known as a version. And with these 2 versions here, sorry, 1 second, train is malfunctioning. So with these 2 versions right here, they not only present in 2 different versions, but at the same time, if you look in the 1973 catalog, 74, you would see this red top in only one of the sets. But this one appeared more commonly in other sets. So with all those trains, and I present to you, that's all I have for the video. And if this video was long, it was not only extremely long, I would have to cut in half and make a part 4. But the part 4 video will not be coming out until a certain day. It's because I have to continue doing productions on it. So that's all the trains that I have for this part 3, and a part 4 will be coming soon. So that's all the trains that I have for the ATM Train Fan Collection of part 3, and I hope to see you on part 4 of Rare Trains that you need to find a major combat. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of your day. See you later on the ATM Train Fan.